Okay, so you clicked on this video, that probably means you like reading manga and now you want to try making your own. That is awesome. That used to be me some time ago and I still remember how overwhelming and confusing it all felt. And so to spare you some headache, I've decided to make this video. And it won't be the first time, I already made a similar video to this one a few years ago. Many people found it helpful, but I myself never thought it was that great. And so here I am making another one, you know, a 2.0 version, an ultimate guide to manga if you will. Okay, that's a complete lie. I don't think it's possible to cram everything there is to know about manga into a short video. I just want to share everything I know and everything that would have helped me when I was starting to make manga. But I really think if you watch this video till the end and you really pay attention, that will be the only video you'll ever need to get you started. It's going to consist of two parts. In the first part we're going to talk about the mindset, the best way to approach manga in the beginning. It's gonna help you stay on track and not get discouraged too soon, because you know, you will get discouraged at some point. Making manga is really hard. And in the second part we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty part of the process. I'll walk you through all the steps of creating a manga page, show most important features of the manga software, and share some tips and tricks. And I think it's worth mentioning that I make manga digitally, and I would also advise you to make it digitally, because it's way easier and cheaper. But in case you absolutely want to make manga traditionally, the second part of the video is probably not going to be as helpful to you. I would still watch it if I were you, because maybe I could convince you to switch to the dark side. But yeah, just so you know what you're getting into. And by the way, one thing I'm not gonna be talking about is storytelling, so how to write stories and so on and so forth. That's a whole other topic that you should learn separately and not by watching manga videos like this one. And so with all that being said, let's dive into the first part of the video. And I think the most important thing to say here is that when you're starting out, you really have to forget your big ideas. And there is two reasons for that. The first one is that since you don't have much experience writing and making manga, all your ideas probably suck. Let's be honest. And the second reason is that these big ideas hold you back and keep you from getting better. Instead of just making manga and getting experience, you focus on these complex 1000 chapter ideas that are way bigger than your skill level. You keep preparing for that project, you keep watching videos like this one, you keep rewriting it, changing things up, and I mean it makes sense, I get it. You want to make sure that that manga turns out as good as it possibly can. But that's the issue, my boy. You have to accept that your first projects will not be good. They will suck real bad. That's just how it is. That's how you get experience and how you actually get good. And that thought, that fact should be liberating to you. Because now you don't have to worry about it turning out good or whatever. You can just focus on making it. And most important, on having fun while making it. Because trust me, without fun you won't get far. But okay, fine. We forgot our big ideas. We grounded ourselves. What now? Now you make one-shots. One-shots are basically like short stories in manga. You probably have heard of Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto. He thought that creating one of the biggest manga is not enough, and so he casually cranked out some of the best one-shots ever. I would advise you to actually go and read them, because first of all they're amazing, you will enjoy them, trust me, but they will also give you an idea of what is possible with one-shots, that they can actually be really good, and most importantly you will realize that a smaller project is sometimes even more fun to do than a bigger one, because it gives you more freedom. You can really experiment with ideas and make something really crazy, really fun. There's many ideas that just wouldn't work for long stories, so take advantage of that and make a bunch of different interesting one-shots. I think it's important to mention that Fujimoto's one-shots are really long. They're like 200 pages a pop, which is definitely way too many pages for your first projects. I would say keep it around 20-30 pages at first, and you can work your way up. Use that phase in your manga journey to experiment with different genres, different art styles, different everything. Just don't limit yourself. That will help you learn a lot about yourself and the way you like to make manga. For example, I myself actually found out that I really enjoy making comedies. Who would have thunk? And once again, your goal is not to make the next big hit or some kind of masterpiece. Your main goal is just to finish them. That's it. But even making smaller stories can sometimes feel overwhelming. So here are 3 words of wisdom that are gonna help you. Keep it simple. Make it so that making manga feels easy. One of the ways you can achieve that is by avoiding all the steps of the process that feel like a chore. If you watch other videos by other creators about how to make manga, they will often tell you that you need to write a script, make storyboards, and stuff like that. Which is not necessarily wrong, I just think you don't have to take it too close to heart. If you really don't like writing scripts and that holds you back, I think you shouldn't write them. Same goes for storyboards, just don't make them. When you work on a small project, and especially if you make manga digitally, you can always go back and change everything that you don't like. With longer stories, you definitely have to plan ahead, but it still doesn't mean you need a script where you write down every small thing that your characters do. You can still improvise a lot of the stuff on the go. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can make the whole manga making process as simple or as complex as you want. I made a decent amount of one-shots with various levels of quality. Yes, some didn't turn out very great, but some of them are pretty goated in my unbiased opinion. And I made them all without script or storyboards or any of that. I would literally just open my program with a single idea in mind and start making the sketches, improvising the whole story as I go. And obviously, if planning out your project and making character sheets and thinking through every small detail in advance actually helps you and feels right to you, by all means, do it. But try making manga without it at first, just to see if you like it or not. For me personally, that was the game changer and made the whole process less intimidating. So yeah, keep your ideas and your process simple. Let's take my very first one-shot as an example. It's 19 pages long, has no dialogue. The only idea I had in mind when I started working on it is that I wanted to make a big fighting scene. And that's what this one-shot is, just a big fighting scene. That's how simple it can be. And since we're already on the topic of keeping it simple, I think it's time to address the thing I've been avoiding this whole time. The art. That's a very sensitive topic, I know. I mean, I get it, you got inspired by My Hero Academia, by One Punch Man, by Berserk, Vinland Saga, all these manga where every page is like a painting. But unfortunately, you will have to accept the fact that your manga will never look like that. Maybe you could pull it off for some time, but this is not sustainable, guys. You have to understand that all these mangaka, all these manga artists, they don't make their manga alone. They have a bunch of assistants who draw the backgrounds and stuff like that. They also do it full time. They have publishers, editors. You are not in the same position. And bear in mind that even with all the help, Japanese mangakas still struggle a lot and barely keep up. And the sooner you accept that this kind of art is unachievable and unrealistic, the better. You might get away with going ham on your art making one-shots, but once you start making longer projects, it gets increasingly harder. Maybe you can make 1, 2, 3 chapters that all look amazing and just like My Hero Academia. But sooner or later, burnout will get your ass. And we don't want that. So if you want to be successful in the long term, keep your art simple. And here's one more important word: consistent. It's better to have a simple art style that's consistent than having like 2 or 3 pages that look amazing and professional and then the rest of your chapter is like average or even worse than that. And simple doesn't mean you have to go full One Punch Man mode, okay? I mean the webcomic, the one version. You don't have to fall that low. Nobody's going to read your manga if it looks like that. Think more of something like Hunter x Hunter or Tower Dungeon. Both great examples that you can make great manga with simple art. And I know that some of you will still not be convinced and continue to think that your art needs to be amazing to stand out and to be a successful mangaka. But I just think that your story and your ideas are way more important than your art. I mean that applies to everything, not just manga. I mean, does Undertale look like GTA to you? Or Homestuck? Or Scott Pilgrim? As long as your art style is unique and interesting, it doesn't have to be crazy complex and detailed. And that will also allow you to just have way more fun making manga and not feel too much pressure. And just as a side note, if you don't feel confident in your art skills yet, I think you should stay away from manga. Until you get more advanced, of course. When you can't draw that well, making manga is just very discouraging and hard. I know that from experience. So get good at drawing first and then make manga, alright? So, to sum everything I set up, no big ideas, make one-shots. They're gonna stink, but that's okay. Experiment a lot, keep everything simple. Your art style, your process, deviate from these rules once you get more experience.
Alright, before we move on to the second part of this video, I've got a little favor to ask of you.
Please go and follow me on Instagram, like all my posts, and maybe comment some nice things. Cause I literally get like 0 likes. Feels like Mark Zuckerberg personally shadow banned my account. So maybe with your help we can fix that, and I can finally get the privilege of serving the holy algorithm. And just like that, we're moving on to the second part of this video, where I will show you how to actually make manga in practice. And the program we're gonna be using for that is Clip Studio Paint, which I can highly recommend, because it is not only the best program for manga and has all the features you can dream of, you can also just buy it one time for a reasonable price and keep it forever, so no subscriptions, none of that shit, which makes it OP in my book. So yeah, we're gonna be working with that program. If you have something else, I'm pretty sure all the features are the same, at least more or less, so you should be good. But I think it's time to actually start up Clip Studio Paint. And the first thing we need to do is to create a new comic file. And here you'll see a lot of options. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand all of them, mainly because they're only important if you're actually gonna print your manga, like physically. But even if you don't plan on doing that, I would still recommend you to keep your DPI pretty high. You could also set your manga to black and white so you don't accidentally use some colors. Keep the size of your page at B4, it's more than enough. And down here you can decide whether you want to make your manga left to right or right to left. And since we're making manga, I hope that you would want to make it right to left. And for that you set your binding point to right binding. And I'll explain why it's important and why it helps in a minute. I mean, everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. So let's finally create that damn file. Now you can see all of the empty pages that are gonna be filled with your beautiful art very soon. All of the pages represent files in the folder you created your manga in. If you try to delete one of them, it will tell you that you cannot undo that action. And it's actually because it just deletes the whole file. So if you accidentally delete a page, don't get scared, you can always go to your trash bin and restore it. Now if you actually open one of the pages, this is what you'll see. And you probably have already noticed the difference to your usual file. These blue lines, the guidelines. This is where it gets a little bit complicated, to be honest, because they once again only matter in case you want to print your manga. So if you want to publish your manga as a webcomic, you can go ahead and ignore them. But I believe that making your manga look like it's meant to be printed makes it look and feel a bit more professional, so I would advise you to use these guidelines. I mean, you never know, maybe you will print your manga one day, so better safe than sorry. As to how to actually use them, I'm not entirely sure myself. As far as I understand, you should keep all the dialogue and all of the most important artwork as close to the inner box as possible. It doesn't always have to be inside the box, but the closer it is to it, the less risk it will get cut off during printing. Now remember that binding thing I talked about earlier? Binding is basically just that middle section of your book, and the pages in that section get sucked in, and so the artwork gets distorted. To prevent that from happening, you need to keep some space empty on the side where the binding is gonna be, and that's where that option helps you, because depending on the side you choose the binding to be on, it sorts the pages in that little overview on the side differently, and that overview helps you see on which side of the page you should keep the empty space. Okay, now let's create some panels. For that we'll use this tool down here, which basically creates a folder, and everything you draw in that folder can get outside of the border. You've also got these two tools here, divide frame folder and divide frame border. The former creates two separate folders, and the latter just splits the panel, which is nice for transitions and stuff like that. So here's how I usually do it. I create a big panel leaving some space on the side of the binding, then I split it into many smaller ones and adjust them as I please. And now you can draw very easily within every individual panel. And once you're done with all the sketches, it's time to ink. For that I would advise you to just use the real G-pen. I remember stressing so much about the brush I use for inking, thinking there was the secret brush that would suddenly make my art look professional. I remember trying to find out what brush Boichi uses. I never did. That doesn't matter, because I realized that it's not about the brush but about how you use it. So don't waste your time on that, don't make my mistake, and just use the real G-pen. It's all you need. Unless you find a brush that you really like, then of course use that one. Just don't think it's about the brush, it really doesn't matter. Alright, next up we've got, what do we've got? Screen tones. They're not necessarily necessary. I mean, they're manga like Naruto, and Demon Slayer that use almost no screen tones at all, but most manga do in fact use them. There's a feature in Clip Studio Paint that basically turns any shade of gray into screen tones. There's a bunch of options you can play around with. It really just depends on the type of look you're going for. You can also use the brushes over here to scrape your screen tones, something you'll often see in manga. Don't forget that you can also layer them to add more depth, but keep in mind this option alone isn't always enough. There's a lot of effects and screen tone looks you can only achieve with textures and textured brushes and stuff like that. It took me a long time to realize it myself, so I'm saving you this time. Alright, so there's also a perspective tool in Clip Studio Paint. It's called Perspective Ruler. It's very useful for drawing backgrounds and speed lines, in case you don't want to use the speedline tool that's already built in, but I honestly don't use it. I just freehand my backgrounds, and I think it can be a bit confusing at first, especially for beginners. It's a bit annoying to use, honestly, so remember the rules from the first part of this video and keep your backgrounds very simple. You know, don't try to make them perfect. Then when you get a bit more experience and you feel a bit more confident, you can start making them cleaner and more detailed. Maybe using the perspective tool, but at first, avoid it, I would say. And last but not least, we've got lettering, so dialogue and speech bubbles and all that stuff. There's a feature in Clip Studio Paint as well that allows you to create speech bubbles. I personally prefer to draw the speech bubbles myself, especially in manga. Makes it look a little bit less artificial and gives it a bit more character. But once again, it's completely up to you. Now when it comes to the actual lettering, there are two types of text you have to know about: the dialogue and the sound effects. You should preferably have a good collection of fonts, which you can find on the internet, on various websites. Just make sure to always read the licensing information. You actually have to pay for most of them if you want to print your manga and sell it and whatnot. But that being said, here's the font that I think is the most popular for manga dialogue. Here's the one I use. And actually, as long as your font looks something like that, you're fine. Just don't stress about it, use some kind of manga font. Nobody really pays attention to that kind of stuff. Now, if your character is mad, or screams, or cries, basically anytime you want to really show the emotion, you can convey it even better by using a different font. Now to sound effects. I can imagine that some of you don't even notice them while reading. It's really easy to miss them. They're really just there for the vibes. But they're still very, very important and make everything feel and look way more dynamic, but only if you do it right. I used to just slap them here and there without giving them much thought, and so they looked very flat and not dynamic at all. So instead of just typing out your sound effect and calling it a day, you can rasterize it, which allows you to edit it and move individual letters around. Make some bigger, some smaller, put them behind your characters. You can even trace over them and make your original design. Just be creative with them and make them look fun. And that's pretty much it. Now you can export your beautiful manga. You can do it in a batch, so you can export all of them at once. I think most of the options here are pretty self-explanatory. The only one that could be confusing is the export range. You can set it to inside of crop mark, which just keeps everything within this guideline, to offset of crop mark, and all pages, which keeps everything. Once again, I think it only matters if you actually want to print your manga. I just keep it at 2 inside of crop mark, so yeah, I don't know. I would say also keep your quality to like around 90. The quality stays pretty much the same, but the file size drops significantly. Also, when you're posting your manga, look at the page size recommendations wherever you want to post your manga and export your manga at that size or just a little bit bigger, because it's gonna get scaled down anyway. Now, if you've got any more questions left, you're gonna find your answers by reading manga. That's gonna be your greatest teacher. Read it, analyze it, copy it even. Nothing bad about that. You really don't need any more tutorials. You need to start actually making manga. And most importantly, don't overthink it. Easier said than done, I know. Just remember that most people don't notice any of the stuff we artists worry about. Just have fun making manga. If you think I forgot to mention something really important, please share it in the comments down below to help others. Leave a like, sub to the channel, and most importantly, follow me on Instagram. I beg you, help me get on shadow banned. Let's stick it to Mark Zuckerberg. If anything in this video helped you, this would be the greatest thank you. Peace.